Forbes India presents AWS, the Mavericks, in association with Matrix Partners India.
Hello and welcome to the Mavericks Founder Chats, a series of conversations from Forbes India presented by AWS in association with Matrix Partners India. Why have we called this show the Mavericks? Because our guests are thought leaders, the digital native entrepreneurs who are willing to break the rules and the status quo to drive change, and in the process solve some of our most pressing problems with tech-driven innovations and leadership. Our first Mavericks founder is Ramki Gadipati, the co-founder and CTO of Zeta, a banking tech startup that recently hit the headlines with its unicorn status. Ramki started his career with Directi, a company founded by the Turakia brothers, as a program manager. Ramki and Bhavin Turakia co-founded Zeta in 2015. And being an engineer founder, Ramki is hands-on with all product development ground up. Joining us in this conversation is Sachin Chawla, Head of Digital Native Businesses for India and Southeast Asia at AWS. Sachin will enlighten us on the role AWS plays in enabling growth of startups of all hues, B2B, B2C, early stage, the works. Let me begin though with Ramki, and let's hear from him about his evolution from program manager to an engineer founder. So Ramki, what is that unique edge that this combo of engineer founder gives you as an entrepreneur, as well as a leader?
Brian, thanks for this opportunity. Yes, being an engineer founder, I think one can have this unique advantage of knowing the things right from the time they're conceived till the time they are delivered to the customer. So you can have a full view of the product life cycle. That's one unique advantage that you get because you can be in the thick of things, comprehend what's happening, as well as not only comprehend but also define in many ways how to go about achieving it. Then you know the why, you know the what, you know the how. So I think that's a very unique advantage to be in.
Sure. Okay, let me turn to Sachin. Sachin, what role does AWS play in contributing to the evolution of startups like Zeta, right? And also, besides B2B, maybe even B2C and early stage startups, how do the needs of each of these buckets of DNBs differ?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. See, we really cover the startup across the, through the life journey, starting from the early stage to when they started to scale to, as they go to a stage of IPO. And, a couple of large startups are looking at IPO this year in India. So, right. And at every stage, the needs differ for the entrepreneurs and for that startup. So, for example, at the early stage, they're really looking at to get quickly off the block. How can they start on cloud? Some of them start natively on cloud. Some of them migrate from cloud. If they are a legacy, they have some legacy tech debt. And in both the cases, we really work with them to start with cloud, transition to cloud. And we have a number of programs there where we help them. For example, one of our flagship program, which is AWS Activate, where we offer credits for startups to get started on AWS. To give you some idea, in the last year itself, we gave credits to the tune of $1 billion to these startups. And if you look at the last 7 years, I think we've given about $3.5 billion of credits to more than 140,000 startups across the globe. As they start to scale, then their needs change, and then they start looking at how can we support them into new product innovations, launching new campaigns, and what they really need from us is support, engineering support. They also look to us to say how can they really run efficiently on cloud, and we help them with the right architectures to stay secure and stay very, very cost efficient. We're probably one organization who incentivized our salespeople to keep the to reduce our customers' bills. So that's the second stage. And then the third stage, we also help them in go-to-market, which is, we help them For example, we have AWS Marketplace, where we have more than 50 categories of products, to close to 8,000 transactable listings, right? Where some of these companies can go and really list their products, and anybody can come to the marketplace and buy. We also make, connect. We have a program called AWS Connections, where we help them really make connections to enterprises they want to sell to enterprise. We also do mentorship programs. So it's really the whole block, from across the journey is where we help them.
Right. Ramki, you are at an interesting stage of your journey, and this is that unicorn question that I had to ask you about. You've just received a round of funding that makes that a unicorn. So, what does this mean to you as a founder, as well as to the people working with you, and what is it? What is the next kind of milestone that you guys are aiming for?
Yeah, Brian, we are in a very unique position as a startup. If you just look at it, like most startups are either consumer focused, or when they are B2B focused, they are focused on usually SMEs, SMBs. But as Zeta, we have this phase of our journey, we are extremely focused on really large enterprises, that too banks. Given that, okay, for us, really a customer win is the real win. Okay, so the funding round is only an additional confidence booster, but the real thing that matters for us is each time when we are able to sign up really large customers, because our growth is like a step curve growth, not a typical smooth hockey stick that you would normally see for a startup. For a well-growing startup, but ours is a kind of a very step curve-ish kind of a growth that you would see. So for us, the really things that matter is how many such customers, and what big leaps that we can make. And when we just look at this, like the real thing that everybody values in this entire funding transaction is the confidence that investors like SoftBank has put on us, and there are our long-term partner and strategic investor Sodexo has again reconfirmed their confidence in us. I think that's the only thing that matters is that confidence. And second and important constituent of this funding is also the capital that we are able to bring onto the table. And what it means to us is that we can now very rapidly expand to various markets outside of India, because I think like the total potential, revenue potential in India is only so much. But if we are able to actually go to other markets, I think like we're practically talking about a $300 billion revenue market in the space. So I think like, there is a lot that we are going to unlock based on the capital that we have received into the company.
Okay. Sachin, you would be familiar working with unicorns, right? And how does AWS look at the unicorn club within their portfolio of collaborators, right? And what does it mean for you? I mean, is it a sign of that such companies are in a position to grow faster with your services?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, unicorns are reigning this year. I don't know if you noticed, already 14 unicorns in the last 4 months. We, about 51 total, and I think close to 14 are fintechs within that 51 unicorns.
Okay. How many of them work with you, if I may ask?
Yeah, I can give you a number, but I can tell you that overwhelmingly a large majority of them work with us.
Okay. Sure.
And use us. I think the difference between when you look at somebody who's a unicorn and somebody who is at an early stage is just the maturity. The maturity of the solution, the maturity of they have figured out how to scale, and then they're just looking at, as Ramki was saying, you're looking at new markets, where AWS obviously comes very handy, because we have regions all across the globe, so you can use our regions in whichever country that you're going, so and so forth. The other thing also is they really use a lot of our advanced technology very well. So whether it is the stack around advanced analytics or machine learning, or containers, or even really using up a purpose-built databases, which we today have almost more than 15 flavors of it. They really use them. They really use these advanced technologies to move faster, stay agile, and make those decisions really faster, right? And that's the cornerstone of fintechs too, right? I mean, if you look at them, one is the scale that defines them. The second is the ability to make decisions quickly. So yeah, they definitely use some of these tech at a much more advanced level than others.
Sure. Okay. Ramkin, coming back to you, you work with banks, many of which have software that's been built maybe 20 years ago or even before that, right? So how can fintech with its cloud native platforms actually help these banks provide better experiences to consumers?
Sure, Brian. I think like what we say is that banks are using software that was written even before the users of the software was born, right? So that's this software doesn't even know who is going to use that piece, like, and so therefore it is not even fit for the users of this age, so to speak, and it hasn't evolved significantly from that time. Unlike what I would say is, like, unlike most fintechs that we see, whose primary objective is to actually sell financial products using technology and deploying various means to be able to craft a product that is fit for various consumer segments. Zeta's business is different. Zeta is in the business of actually revamping the core banking tech stack itself. It's to help banks move out of that legacy technology and become cloud native, digital native businesses themselves, right? So we are kind of doing a significantly larger heavy lifting on the technology space, and we are therefore purely a technology company. We don't have any objective of distribution of a financial product or crafting a financial product for a particular consumer segment or a corporate segment, so to speak, in this journey. So in this relationship, I think we have a lot of work to do in educating the banks and in helping them understand how cloud is better, not just only from ability to scale and meet the requirements of the customers, but also more importantly, meeting the security and regulatory obligations itself. So I think like we have been able to work with various banks to be able to make them appreciate these facts. I think that's a primary role we play.
Sure. So Sachin, in a world of digital payments and financial services, what is the role fintech and cloud services can play collaboratively? How would you kind of?
I think fintech, in my opinion, fintech is already playing a very major role, in the whole financial services industry. The fact that RBI is now looking to have a division which is focused on fintech is also a testimony of that. If you look at what has happened in the payment industry itself, right? I mean, the government data says that the number of digital transactions crossed 25 billion or so, more than that, which is much over China, where China is currently, is again a testimony of, where our digital journey is. And, the likes of Paytm and Razorpay and PayUs, and a lot of these companies are at the forefront of it. Then you look at the lending space, right? I mean, there's so much of work done by these fintechs in the lending space itself, when you have players like Lending Card, where they're offering loans to the MSMEs. You have companies like Credit Vidya, which is really an ML or a data-based analytics platform, which does the whole underwriting. You have customers like Credit B, which offer unsecured loans to self-employed people or students and so on and so forth. Then you have customers. You have customers like we were talking about Zeta, like we were just going and totally revamping the whole banking software systems, and and saying it's an archaic way of doing things, and we really need to look at what's happening on the consumer world, and the backend also has to change. It can't remain the same. The same happening on the wealth tech side, on the insure tech side, The point I'm trying to make is they already played a very crucial role, and cloud has been the underpinning technology into it, which is due to which all of this is happening. And the reason is very simple. For a lot of these fintechs and these customers, what they're doing is that at a scale is really, really something that you can't do without cloud. You're using technologies which is machine learning and analytics, where the stacks on the cloud providers, like AWS, is absolutely matured. So you can use, whether you have machine learning practitioners or whether you're not, you can, choose to use where your comfort level is, and and use the stack at an abstract level or really at a practitioner level. So there is a lot happening. I think jointly, if you see, there's a couple of things that will happen as we go forward. I think digital lending is something where both fintechs and both cloud has a major role to play, because digital lending is a space where you can't really talk about a 5 trillion economy if you don't really digitize the SMBs or the MSMEs, right? So I think there's a play there, and as Amazon, we've launched the Amazon Digital Suite. We have a lot of fintech partners also. It's basically a suite to digitize SMBs. We said in 2020 that we have a pledge to digitize almost 10 million SMBs. It's a step in that direction. So you can go to Amazon website and you can just click, and the software is available to you, to SMBs to digitize themselves like in a typical Amazon.in fashion. Right? So I think that's one area which is definitely where both can play, and we'll definitely also see areas around new banking come up, and also areas where banks will become open to share data at real-time basis.
Okay, great. Okay, I just want to ask one question on quality innovation, right? And this is something that everybody wants quickly. So if maybe Ramki could explain it from the Zeta point of view about how does cloud actually help speed up innovation, and maybe Sachin, then you could give us a broader view on this, right? I mean, how do you all help your collaborators speed up innovation? So Ramki, maybe you could go first on how important is the speed of innovation in the first place, and how does the cloud help speed it up?
Absolutely. I think it goes without saying that, okay, whatever you could do today, you should do today. So, and I think like cloud is one key enabler for it. I mean, innovation, it comes in all shapes and forms, and it should be, I don't even know that, okay, there should be an argument whether it is important, but it is taken for granted that it's the most essential thing in any business, any walk of life today, so to speak. But going from there, cloud, I think there are multiple generations of cloud evolution also. Like the first generation is the infrastructure as a service itself. That itself has been a path-breaking change for how businesses can conceive their technology products, and how soon can they actually launch their products for the customers. I think we have, from that time, that is way back in 2006, from there to now, if you just look at it, we have rapidly evolved, whether in the form of PaaS, whether in the form of various SaaS services that are available, and now the whole marketplace that's available on each of the cloud platforms. I think that we have come a very long way in the cloud evolution, and I don't think there should ever be a question whether to be on the cloud or not. It's whether to be cloud native or late adapters of the cloud. I think that's the only question. And today, a lot of companies today, if they are starting now, it's quintessential to be cloud native, and can't. I mean, I personally cannot think of running a business without even considering cloud, right? It's almost like you can't build a software without a programming language and an operating system. Cloud is that today. It's as fundamental and as fundamental an ingredient in your thinking as a programming language and a operating system is.
Okay, so Sachin, maybe you could give us your view on how does cloud actually help speed up innovation?
Yeah, sure. So see, I mean, for any innovation to happen, we always say two things have to happen, right? Actually, more than two things, but two things are essential to it. The first is, you really need to experiment more, right? You need to experiment You need to do more experiments every day, every week, every quarter, every month, every year. Because unless you experiment, you will not innovate. An experiment is fundamentally something which for which you don't know the result, what it will be, right? So I think that's number one. The second is, when you experiment, you also fail, and large number of experiments do fail. When large number of experiments fail, you have to somehow keep the cost of failure really, really low. I think that is what cloud does. What cloud does is it lets you rapidly experiment, because you have this plethora of options of whether it is instances or whether it is technology, machine learning, AI, databases, all of that availability at a click of a button. So you can experiment on what you want to do. And the second thing is, you can experiment and quickly see whether it is going, and if it's failing, the cost of it is pay as you go. So you use it for 2 months, you see if the experiment's not working, you shut it down or you iterate on it, and then you start. I think that's how cloud really helped. But I would also like to touch upon the topic of innovation. I think a lot of it also, one is cloud, but a lot of it is also what is the culture of innovation in your organization, how you're leading that culture, what kind of people you're hiring. And like inside Amazon, we say, in Amazon, we have multiple paths to a yes, which basically means you really need to create a culture inside the organization. If somebody wants to innovate, he has multiple paths to go and get a yes on, and not just a single path to say, you can't go and do this.
Okay, great. In the meantime, I'll just ask the audience to post their questions so that we can address them to Sachin and Ramki at the end of this discussion. Yeah, so please send us your questions. Great. Okay, let me get back to this conversation. So, Sachin, you talked about the cost of failure. There's obviously a cost involved in transiting to the cloud, right? But there's obviously a big bang for that buck also, right? So how this equation work, Ramki? Do you want to take that? I mean, the cost to benefit kind of angle here. I mean, how? If you could probably just explain it in very layman terms, if I may say. I mean, how do you get the benefits of that investment?
Is a question to me or Ramki?
Ramki, go ahead, both of you could take this. Actually, let's start with Ramki.
Yeah. So, Brian, I think as Sachin previously mentioned, one really important thing is the opportunity cost, right? If you can't experiment, if you can't try out things, you're losing on the opportunity. And how soon can you try? Like, the quantification of an opportunity cost is one really hard thing to do. But very clearly, it is a very strategic priority for any new business to be able to try out things rapidly. And that's what I would say. And holistically also, if you just take the typical balance sheet and P&L approach, all the infrastructure that is required for you to run your software product as a SaaS product for any of your customers, or delivering software-based products to end consumers, the entire investment on infrastructure would have been a capital cost. But with the pay-as-you-go approach that you just take for this, it's pretty much like it's an expense item that is just very lean on the books when you were to look at it. Yes, capital is accessible. A lot more of that capital is now could now be invested in consumer-facing innovation, and as well as trying out things, seeing whether the business actually grows in a certain way or not through the capital, rather than just putting a majority of the chunk into the infrastructure investments or asset buying. That's more often than not may have been a premature cost to take, right? So that's a big difference that you would just see in going with the cloud.
Right. Sachin, your view on the cost to benefit equation?
Yeah, I think as Ramki said, right? I mean, it's just the benefits just far outweigh the cost equation, because you think of, so there are two kind of organizations. One, if you're starting something new, it's just it's just so obvious to go to cloud because you don't have to invest in capex. So and if you invest in capex, in today's world, a lot of the products and innovations coming is an iterative process, right? As I said, you would fail. So in a capex world, if you fail, the cost of it is so high that you may not be able to go and try another thing. But here you can try rapid experiments and see which one sticks, and then just move on with it, right? So that itself is a big driver. That's number one. The second is, you look at the agility or the time to market, right? The time to market is really, really short. In a digitized world, it's even shorter, which basically means, if you have something, you have to get to market as soon as possible. If you would do it in a pre-cloud world, you would order this hardware, you order a bunch of software, you get them, you plug them, you get them to work, which in itself is a 6 to 8 months, 9 months process, right? And then experiment, or then build something over it. Whereas here you can just quickly spin up number of servers and resources and get to market very quickly. And it's not on the when you start, it's also an iterative process across your journey. So when you're launching new products, you're launching new campaigns, all of that just shrinks, right? You do it so fast, quickly and faster. I think that's point number two. The third is the scalability, right? You can't really scale, right? I mean, a lot of these businesses have their own peaks, and for example, if you are a customer like Dream 11, you will have a peak during IPL. If you and for every of them will have their own peak, right? So how do you scale for peak? You don't need to. You just scale in cloud when the peak comes, and you scale down when the peak goes away. So that's itself a massive cost saver, right? Otherwise you'll have to provision yourself for that peak all the time. And so either you will have a situation where your customers coming and you provisioned wrongly because the peak was higher, or you provisioned in a way that the peak was lower and you provision more, so there's a waste of resources. So I think the proposition is extremely high, and for customers or who are moving to cloud, who had legacy debt, the number of programs that we offer which helps them to move to cloud, as a certain in terms of credits and also assistance to move to cloud, that the risk of moving to cloud is really mitigated, and also the cost equation, the economics work.
Sure. Right. I just want to add to that, Sachin. Ramki did talk about the benefits for consumer-facing innovations, right? So if you could break down how the cloud comes into the picture for typical use cases that we deal with every day, right? When say ordering food online, or booking a cab, or making an online payment, or lending digitally, right? I mean, if you could probably just strip it down and explain to us how does the cloud come into the picture in each of these daily transactions that we do.
Yeah, I mean, you are probably are using cloud much more than we all realize in our daily lives. As you said, whether it is booking a cab or ordering anything. Let's say you go on to a Swiggy app and you want to order something. It's right from the start. That app where you're going ordering is actually obviously made by Swiggy, but hosted on a cloud platform. And there's so many of components that go into it. It's very difficult to explain it without whiteboarding it. But as you can see, it's really like a microservices based architecture, where everything is a microservice, and ordering is a microservice, and delivery is a microservice. Within ordering, certain kinds of cuisine is a microservice. So you go and you order, and when you order, there's a bunch of activity that happen at the back, which includes spinning of servers, which includes writing on the database, which includes writing on a billing system, fetching details, going and writing into your CRM. I mean, it's a bunch of these systems coming together at the back end, and all of them are running in cloud. Right, so and a bunch of them coming together, and ultimately you're getting your food delivered. But there's a lot going on at the back end to make sure that you get that food warm and fresh to your desk.
Okay, got it. Okay, another kind of question for both of you is, Ramki can of course come from the Zeta point of view. So Ramki, I'll first start with you. So how is the way a DNB consumes and leverages technology different from the way a traditional company would probably do it?
Yeah, I think DNB is a tag we're attributing to companies which have just started their entire product cycle, as well as the business thought process completely on the cloud-based technologies, so to speak. So I think they kind of conceive everything from the day one, in terms of like how a journey of a customer starts with a digitally enabled device, or now there are of course so many more mediums or means of access through digital interactions. It could be voice, it could be gestures, and various things. Like, they start the customer journey from all these enormous number of digital channels that are available. Think through how all of these can be synthesized. I mean, the customer is digitally present, omnipresent across all these channels. How do you synthesize all those interactions to provide something of value both to the business as well as to the customer? I think it's putting that customer and their interactions first, and thinking through how to synthesize all the information that these interactions can produce to generate value to both the customer as well as to the business. I think that's a very foundational way of approaching digital first businesses. But I think more often than not, traditional companies look at it. Traditional is probably not the right word. A certain class of companies might be starting from how the P&L looks like, and how the what is the raw material to procure, and how do you actually put it through a certain steps of transformation, and how do I distribute it, and eventually what is the value addition and P&L for that is going to look like. And customer probably is not in the mix of thinking as much as it is the central piece in thinking in a digital first way.
Okay, before I take that question to Sachin, I'll just send another request to the audience. We've got a couple of questions. If there are any more, please send in your questions now so we can take it to our participants at the end of the discussion. Right, yeah. So Sachin, you are in a vantage point to see how traditional companies, or for the lack of a better word from my point of view, you could call it what you want, right? So how do the traditional companies consume and leverage technology compared to a DNB? Or maybe you could take it the other way around, since DNB is what you do day in and day out. So how does the DNB consume and leverage technology differently?
Yeah, I've had the privilege to do different things in Amazon, so I have a vantage point of both. I think the fundamental difference between the digital native companies and some of the traditional enterprises, if I can say, is the fact that the digital native companies really don't have much of a tech debt. When I say tech debt, means that they really don't have systems or processes or the technologies which is been there for ages, right? When you compare this to enterprises, right? They have technologies and processes, which been there for decades, and some of them have also been, they kind of locked into that process, whether it is some of the old guard database vendors, so you kind of have that tech debt to really go out from, and you suddenly also come, so you're a large organization, you're comfortable in a certain way that you're working, so you have to really break that, right? So you have to get out of the tech debt and see how do you modernize your technology into how digital natives are doing, because if you don't do, it's ultimately it'll be difficult to survive in the digital age, because it's almost like, if you look at an enterprise and you look at the digital native surrounding, it's almost like a piranha attack, where the different piranhas are coming with their very specialized service and going to target one of the things that you do as an enterprise. So I think one is the tech debt piece. The second piece is the approach in which they're set up, right? They're not set up, as Ramki was saying, to focus on the customer and work backward from it, and then say, will I design my processes and will I design my organization in a way that focuses on the customer and that breeds innovation? I spoke about the whole thing about multiple paths to say yes, right? In a typical enterprise, you would have if I have an idea, I'll go to my boss, who says no. If I go to my boss's boss, who'll say no. I go to boss's boss, and who says no, and period, it ends. Consider that with the digital native. If I have an idea, I'll go to 20 VCs. The 20 says no, but the 21st says yes, which basically means there are multiple paths to a yes. And the traditional enterprises are not designed in that way, where they're really looking to innovate by having those multiple paths to yes, and the processes are not designed for that. And I think another thing is, are you really hiring people? What kind of people are you hiring? Are they ones who are looking at customer, working backward, and saying, we really want to reinvent this customer experience? This is not correct. And are you helping them do that? I think that's where the difference between the two are.
Right. Got it. Cool. Okay. I think we need to probably just discuss the current context, also the situation everybody finds themselves in. It's the pandemic, right? And how has that kind of affected your business? What are the opportunities that have come to the fore during this period, right? So Ramki, how has the pandemic been for Zeta? It's obviously not been a problem in terms of fundraising, but in terms of business opportunities and probably some challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so it's been bad for everyone. I think yes, very small sort of companies may have benefited from it, but everybody would have faced challenges. Nevertheless, in terms of how they had to transform their organization, how their employees have been going through quite a lot of challenging times, and how they need to rise up to the occasion, support in all possible ways the well-being of the employees and their families, and suddenly the entire family of the employees is also part of the family. Our organizations were to consider as one unit, so to speak. So I think there are those unique demands suddenly placed on every organization, and I think that has always been an interesting problem or interesting challenge that we have to raise to during this pandemic. But in terms of business, I would say that yes, for us, practically nobody goes to a bank these days. Yes, it was a trend, a growing trend, but now it is obvious. Nobody even argue whether there will be, for this segment it is different, for that other segment it is different. Suddenly, with the adoption of digital technologies, digital payments, digital financial services, all of them have shot up, or they have become the only mode or only channel through which a financial service can be delivered now. So this has become quite evident for everyone, and therefore it made every financial institute to question several of the processes that they may have had, several of the systems that they may have had, and some other people have gone back to the drawing board to look at their entire strategy of how they create products, distribute products, and gain their customers. So it's a foundational shift, and this definitely, given where Zeta plays, this has definitely been an advantage to Zeta, and we have benefited from it for sure.
Sure. Sachin, how has been the experience, and what kind of inquiries have you all been getting in the past 1 year?
Yeah.
Do you see a burst in the volume of business, or is it an opportunity in that sense, a business opportunity?
Yeah, I would say that the pandemic has definitely shown us a different way of working. And initially when this happens, there was no pattern recognition, so we all were thinking, how do we work and how do we support customers? And also a lot of our customers just started to say, can we work offline and use some of our productivity tools? But pandemic surely has accelerated the whole adoption to cloud, and we see that very clearly. There's a McKinsey report which says that the organizations have actually leapfrogged several years when it comes to their digital customer interaction, or digitizing the customer interaction in the pandemic period. So it surely shows, it's across domains, across enterprises, SMBs, we've seen a surge to move to cloud. And the reason is that during that time, most of the customers who were on cloud did fare much better than the ones who were not on cloud. Whether we saw both worlds, we saw one side where customers had to suddenly scale. For example, one of our global customers, Zoom, which, and they had to scale from almost 10 million weekly participants, that they had, to almost 300 million. Now imagine doing this, if you were not on cloud. So they could clearly scale up. We saw the same in India with customers around gaming. Gaming emerged as an escapism thing for most people. So those companies saw a lot of surge. We also saw surge in online grocery and those kind of companies. So they could really scale. But then there were the other side, right, where you had the travel and hospitality or ride sharing, which got affected very badly. And a lot of time, it's spoken, the benefit of cloud of scaling is spoken, but never spoken how, the benefit of scaling down is never spoken. And a lot of these organizations could actually benefit from cloud because they could scale down their infrastructure massively and save on the cost, right? Because you only pay for what you use. So a lot of those customers really scaled it down. And a lot of innovation also, so save cost, a lot of innovation also came, right? With RBI saying eKYC is allowed. So we work with customers to design a solution around eKYC using some of the machine learning solutions we have and AI solutions we have. So it has certainly accelerated the path to digitization and digital transformation. And you can't obviously digitally transform if you're not on cloud. As Ramki said, it's almost impossible to think. So it definitely is going in that direction.
Yeah, Ramki, some challenges, issues in your business, issues like data privacy, cybersecurity, compliance. I mean, does it get tougher during a pandemic? I would assume so.
Not quite. I think, one important thing is that, okay, these are very elementary concerns for the business that we are in. We should have taken care of them with or without pandemic. And, we have this principle from the day one when we set up our office. People in our office have no special privileges than the same person going and sitting out of Starbucks to do his work. So essentially, our office is pretty much like a more well designed and well enabled Starbucks coffee shop. That's all it is, right? So people can, so they had to go through the same level of security. Although they're in our office, they have to go through the same level of security in access, everything, as though they are accessing it from a public location. That's the day one principle in which, from a digital security, access security, and whatever various aspects that we've taken. That's the aspect that we have taken. So there's no privilege of being at office, so to speak, from a privacy security perspective. So therefore, we have been able to handle this situation relatively easily, I think, as compared to that of maybe other people. But these for today's business, privacy is at the forefront. There are several laws also that are going to be made in India, but across the world, we have seen privacy is an extremely important thing. Data security is equally important. So I think these are baked into the initial thinking, not only of the software, but also of your entire organization and plans. So I think, therefore, we didn't have any peculiar challenge here, Brian.
Sure. Okay. Sachin, is that basically the experience of most DNBs during the pandemic on the data privacy, data security fronts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, please go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, I don't see that anything has changed in pandemic. I think security does remain an extremely important aspect, and it remains a job zero for us at AWS. And we obviously, if you look at the way we build the infrastructure, it's built to satisfy the needs of some of the most sensitive organizations, including militaries or global banks and so on and so forth. So for us, security it's a shared responsibility. So anything hypervised and down is what AWS takes care of. The application level, however, is for the customers to manage. And obviously, we have number of solutions that we help customers, with respect to managing application level security, and our scale itself, Brian, gives us the advantage to invest a lot on this area and make sure that our customers stay secure. And we keep coming with new innovations. For example, we launched a number of services around, we launched what we call AWS Macie, which basically helps you guard or secure some of the highly sensitive information like PII data you have. We launched a service called Guard Duty, which is a threat detection service. So we constantly innovating, and we're constantly working with our customers to make sure that they're secure.
Okay, I've got a question from the audience from Samir Sinha. Samir asks, what are some of the challenges of adopting the cloud, and how can the adoption journey be made seamless? Right? Maybe both of you could answer this from your respective positions. Ramki, would you want to go first? Challenges of adopting the cloud, and how can the journey be made seamless?
I think it's a fairly broad question. I think there is a constant effort being invested into making this as seamless as possible. Today, if you want to just put a shopping cart on the cloud, it's probably less than 1 day's job, depending on what you want to achieve. Something could be as trivial and as simple as that. To something extremely complex can also be done on the cloud. So based on the use case, I think there is a lot of advancement that has been made to make it very easy and very accessible to lots of use cases. So it is difficult to comment, at least for me, without knowing the specific use case in question here. But I think given the enormous amount of investment that various companies are making on the cloud, I would say that this is constantly improving. Accessibility and ease of use is constantly improving across the board.
Okay, Sachin, would you want to add something?
Yeah, I would say the same. I think it's a pretty broad question. So, but I would let me put it this way. I think the challenge of moving to cloud is not really a tech challenge. It's more to do with the organization and the will and will and the skill, to do so. And a lot of it actually comes from top down. We have seen very clearly with the organizations where there is a top sponsorship, sponsorship from the top to move to cloud, have actually moved to cloud very fast and in a very efficient way. And compared to organizations where you don't have exec sponsorship.
Okay, sure. Okay, there's another question from Sudha Madhuri, and this is for Ramki. So Ramki, Sudha asks, what challenges do you see as you push your products in the APAC region? Do you see acceptance of this cloud native design from the banks here?
Yeah, I think APAC is not particularly different from many other regions per se. I think definitely customers are aware that they one day have to transition to cloud. Okay, at least that level of preparedness is there with them. But what I see is that rightfully so, each of our solutions and products are put to enormous amount of due diligence by a varied number of stakeholders before they say that they are good to go to adopt it. And I think that's a very relevant and important aspect of operating in the enterprise space and trying to transform an enterprise into a cloud native or digital native business. So you should be prepared for that. But beyond that, I think there is a lot of preparedness to accept such products if they meet all the expectations.
Okay, great. Okay, just a couple of questions and we'll conclude here. Sachin, in a post-COVID world, and assuming that this pandemic will go away, how do you see India's DNB ecosystem shaping up, right? And the role that you could play in it?
Yeah, I think the post-COVID world, as I said, I think pandemic has certainly acted as a catalyst to this whole digital world. And we're seeing this adoption grow very, very fast. If you just look at the figures from funding, in the last 4 months, the whole digital ecosystem or the startup ecosystem got funding about $7.8 billion. That is more than 65% of the total funding, 65% of the total funding that was there last year. So within 4 months, we already had 65% of the total funding in 2020. And it's more than 50% of what was there pre-COVID world, which was 2019. Right. So it's certainly, we do see funding is definitely back. I think we will continue to see reimagination of the post-COVID world, right? For example, you will see new models emerge, new ways of working. For example, why would a 20,000-seater contact center should be, a contact center at 1 or 2 locations? Why can't those agents be actually spread out in 20 cities and work from home, because their technology will be available for it. And the inhibition to do that is gone, right? I mean, we are all okay now with dogs barking or, your children popping up on the screen. So that's all okay now. I think that, and, we have solutions around, for example, Amazon Connect, which is a modern contact center solution, which can help you do that. So all of that is going to happen. We also believe that I think cloud and will play a crucial role, and tech will play a crucial role in the post-COVID world. Whether it is, as Ramki was saying, what Zeta is totally doing is just, working from the customer backward and saying, this needs to change, and we need to reinvent the whole customer experience, right, of customers who go, interact with banks. So you'll keep on seeing that. You'll see more use of machine learning and AI and some of these technologies. I think every application will be infused with the machine learning or an AI, going forward. So a lot of those things will happen. I think few sectors we'll see do definitely much better, whether it's ed tech, we'll see online education more and more. We'll see the whole health tech industry, given what this pandemic happened, has shown us that to do a lot, grow much faster. I think e-com, again, going to grocery stores will still be social distancing and all things. So more people will order online, and, that industry will grow really, really fast. OTT and gaming, another one. I think people have found newfound love with it. Not that it was not there, but it's more and more now. And definitely fintech, in both, whether it's in the payment world or lending world or all the wealth tech world, all of that. I mean, fintech is at the center of all of this. So I think these industries will definitely see a surge.
Sure. Okay. Ramki, one last question for you, and this is a question journalists love to ask, is where do you see Zeta maybe 3 to 5 years down the line?
I think like Zeta would have actually transformed some really large banks across few markets, most definitely US, India, UK. We are working on partnerships that make that happen and enable from the real core a lot of innovation in the banking. So today, the premise is that banks can't innovate as rapidly as some of the other companies can do. Therefore, there are a lot of redundancy in what various companies are attempting to do. We want to save that redundant efforts and make sure that there's a lot more that banks can do to accelerate fintech innovation, and that's what the role that Zeta is going to play. And I think fairly confident that we're going to do it in many jurisdictions in partnership with many banks.
Okay, Sachin, one last question to you is what advice would you give founders of DNBs in a COVID world as well as a post-COVID world?
It's a tough question to answer. They are really very smart people, and they really know what they're doing really well. But I would say, so I'm, the expert in their own domains, but I would just say 2-3 things. I think one is, I see some of these legacy DNBs, who have tech debt and, really spend a lot of time in just debating the cost economics of moving to cloud. And, I've seen some of them really spend like a year to just think when to move to. They ultimately all of them move, but the amount of time that they spent on is really an opportunity cost, right? What Ramki said about it. So the benefits of it is far, far higher, and you sometimes can't quantify the benefits of agility, time to market. It's difficult to quantify them, and we get into this long circle of evaluation. I would just say that it's almost given. Don't please lose that time and move as fast as you can. There's a number of programs that can help you do so. The second I would say is really to a lot of them is think about the culture of innovation in your organization deeply. Think about do you really have that culture of innovation, and do you have those multiple paths to yes? Do you create opportunities of people to innovate? Do you hire the kind of people who want to innovate? And I think if you do that right, a lot of these, and that's what I've seen in a lot of these DNBs who are successful have done that piece right very, very well.
Sure. Great. Okay. Thanks, Ramki and Sachin. And before we end this discussion, I would request the audience to share their feedback using the feedback button that will be flashed on the screen. Okay, so please send in your feedback. And thank you, Ramki, and thanks, Sachin, again. It's been a stimulating discussion.
Forbes India presents AWS, the Mavericks, in association with Matrix Partners India.